Reading of First 100, your Patreon strategy guide. If you like to get the physical copy, you can scan the QR code. A couple of things. At the end of each chapter, there are activities that you can use to implement the things that we are talking about. If you'd like those activities and worksheets, go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard or scan the QR code. The physical copy of this book can be found on Amazon or on my Patreon page. Again, scan the QR code or go to patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard. Now, let's begin the reading of the book, First 100, Your Patreon Strategy Guide. Introduction. Before we delve into the strategies, tips, and personal insights that comprise this book, let me introduce myself. I'm not just the author of these pages. I'm a fellow creator, a writer, an idea machine, and perhaps like you, someone who has experienced the highs and lows of creative entrepreneurship. In 2023, my Patreon community reached a milestone that sparked the creation of this book, the first 100 members. This mix of paid and free members represents more than a number. They signify a breakthrough in a pursuit that has often been as challenging as it has been rewarding. In my case, I've earned between $500 and $1,000 a month over the last 2 years from my patrons. And while that may not set records, it marks a significant achievement for many creatives who have tried their hand at building a sustainable community. One thing about me is that I will teach One thing about me is that I will only teach you what I've actually done and learned. When I hit the 500 members, I'll probably write a book about that, but I won't be someone I'm not, and I won't claim to do something I haven't done. So if you're just starting on Patreon or seeking that initial growth spurt on the platform, you're holding the right book in your hands or reading the right book on your device or listening to the right book. If you're further along, please join my Patreon site. Free is great and paid is even better. And share some tips, tricks, and insights with us at www.patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard. And just going off script from the book real quick, we are now almost at 400 members. And once we reach the 500 mark, I'll do something special for the community. My journey. My journey has been diverse and at times unconventional. Under the umbrella of my company, NerdWorks, an image activism and diverse storytelling organization, I've written and ghostwritten for celebrities, CEOs, and social impact entities such as DMC from Run DMC, New York State Department of Health, and more. Under NerdWorks, I publish my books and I funnel all of my author related income through my company. That's important to know, as it will give you context for what I have built and how I manage the income from my Patreon community. Alongside that, I run an academic branding company called Power Your Research that shows PhDs how to amplify their visibility, authority, and income without the expense of a publicist. When I'm not managing these ventures, I am a full-time professor in the Department of Communication, Journalism, and Media, with nearly 2 decades of teaching public speaking and interpersonal communication under my belt. In short, I do a lot. I wasn't always an entrepreneur, though. I started building my brand and publishing as an academic first. The narrative of my career took a pivotal turn with my dissertation on the Boondocks comic strip, which led to my first book, Black Comics: Politics of Race and Representation. Winning the Eisner Award and becoming the first Black woman to do so was a moment of recognition that expanded beyond my personal achievements. It made me a Black history fact and a staple in the comics ecosystem. I know you didn't come here to learn about what I've accomplished, but I believe context is critical to applying any skill someone will teach you. It allows you to see why I think the way I do, what I had and didn't have when building my community, and the values that reflect some of my ethos. As you navigate through this book, remember that while I am a writer at heart, the principles and practices I share are universal, and many apply to community building and communication skills beyond Patreon. They are adaptable to whatever art form you choose to communicate with the world. Whether you're an illustrator, musician, podcaster, or any type of creator in between, the essence of building a community on Patreon remains the same. However, it is on you to tailor the tactics to your audience, your end goal, and your personality. My Patreon journey. My Patreon journey began around 2017 with a common misconception. If you build it, they will come. The truth, as I would learn over the ensuing years, is far more complex. My Patreon page initially sat dormant, a digital ghost town of sorts. It wasn't until I faced personal adversity, escaping an abusive relationship, financial ruin, and a drawn out divorce that I turned to Patreon not just as a platform, but as a vehicle to make some extra income. The necessity to create, survive, and thrive was born out of a tough time in my life. After leaving that abusive relationship, I slept on my mother's couch for a while with my son before officially moving back into my childhood room. My bank accounts drained to zero as I tried to finalize divorce paperwork, and this went on for 5 years. Unfortunately, when someone wants to hold up a divorce process, they can drain you mentally and financially. This is what happened to me. Patreon was one of the many entrepreneurship threads I pulled to attempt to stay afloat. It wasn't, however, until I was financially thriving and free that I was able to gain my first 100 members. My experience has taught me that Patreon should not be viewed by creators as merely a side project, but as a pretty important part of your entrepreneurial journey because it's not just about the extra income, it's about the community you build. I plan to continue to prioritize my membership site for years to come, which means dedicating more time to it and adding more value to the people who join. I've learned valuable lessons on creating and leading a budding community that genuinely supports one another, a potential that I believe is often left untapped by many creators. This book is my way of laying out the stepping stones that led to my modest yet meaningful success. From setting up tiers and testing offerings to sales funnels that work and competitor analysis, I'll guide you through the practicalities and pitfalls. This book is designed to be a quick yet actionable guide to get you to your first 100 members. My goal is to equip you with the knowledge you need to see results as quickly as possible. And once you've applied these insights, I hope to hear from you about your triumphs, your challenges, and your first 100 Patreon members. Feel free to study my page for examples and analysis as we go along. You can do that by scanning the QR code or going to patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard. That's DrSheena I love to have you as a free member and for you to share the page with someone you think would find value in the paid tiers. Also, please reach out and share your success with me as you apply what you learn. By the way, as you go, you can always ask questions at the QR code as well if you are a member of my Patreon community. What this book will and will not do. Before we dive into the heart of this book, it's essential to clarify what you can expect from these pages, and equally important, what you will not find. This clarity will ensure that you are well prepared to apply the insights and strategies discussed in each chapter effectively. What this book will do. This book is crafted with a singular focus to guide you to your first 100 patrons on Patreon. Hitting that first mark is a milestone, signifying a solid foundation from which your creative venture can grow. This is not just a theoretical approach, it's a practical playbook. Here's what we'll cover in the ensuing chapters. Number 1, proven funnels. We will delve into the specific funnels that I have personally used to guide people to my Patreon page. These are tried and tested. They are the paths I've walked and found success with, not hearsay or untried theories. I will also share what didn't work so that you can learn from my failures as well. Tiers and content strategy. Number 2, tiers and content strategy. You will learn about the thoughtful creation of membership tiers and how to populate them with content that retains members. We'll discuss the delicate balance between free and paid content, providing a framework that you can adapt to your audience's desires. I will also discuss tier pricing strategies that did not work because I think hearing my failures and partial wins will help you create your own path or avoid costly mistakes. Number three, competitor analysis. A deep dive into competitor analysis will equip you with the tools to understand what works for creators like you. This isn't about imitation, but about informed inspiration that can fuel your unique approach. Number four, community building. The heart of Patreon is creating community. This book will reframe your perspective on Patreon, not as a charity platform from people that like your work, but as a thriving community hub where experiences, not just content, are created and shared. Number five, the three C's: consistency, communication, and commitment. These three principles form a memorable framework that we'll explore to help you cultivate a thriving Patreon community. I found these three C's as pivotal foundations for my growth. What this book will not do. Now, let's talk about what this book is not designed to do. It's important to note these so you can prepare accordingly. Number one, platform basics. This book will not cover the rudimentary steps of using Patreon, such as where to find specific buttons or settings. It's assumed that you have a basic familiarity with the platform, and if not, that you will take the time to explore Patreon to grasp these essentials. Number two, profile setup. While obviously important, the setup of your profile page, including your profile picture and intro video, will not be the primary focus. We will touch upon these briefly, but the emphasis will be placed on strategies to get you new members. Number three, beyond 100 patrons. Transparency is key, and as such, this book will focus solely on the journey to your first 100 patrons. It will not cover growing beyond your first 100. At the present time, I have a little over 200 members, and just going off script here, at the present time, I have close to 400 members. I only teach what I've actually done. When I hit 500, maybe it'll be time to celebrate with another edition of this book. When I hit 500 members, I'm going to release a $500 micro grant to my community, just as a side note. Understanding what this book will and will not explore sets you up for success. By knowing what groundwork you need to lay and what knowledge you'll gain, you can approach this book as a tool designed to empower your specific journey on Patreon. Now, with clarity and anticipation, let's turn the page and begin the process of building your community and reaching your first 100 patrons. Section 1, the why and the how. Chapter 1, why Patreon? A case study. Amanda Palmer crushed it. Amanda Palmer, a musician, author, and performer, is a great example of how artists can leverage Patreon to support their art. Her journey on the platform began in March 2015 and has since become a case study in building a thriving, supportive community of patrons. Before Patreon, Amanda faced the universal artist dilemma: how to make a living from her art without compromising her creative freedom. The traditional music industry model often left her at odds with record labels that pushed for more commercial success over artistic integrity. Amanda turned to Patreon as a means to bridge the gap between her art and her livelihood. Her approach was unconventional. She asked her fans to directly support her creative endeavors, whatever they might be, without the filter of a record label. She advocated for a pay-what-you-want model, inviting her audience to engage in a new form of patronage. Her Patreon campaign was an immediate success. By offering her patrons a range of rewards, from unreleased songs and surprise gifts to webcasts and personal communications, she fostered a strong connection with her fans. Her open and direct communication style brought her closer to her audience, making them feel they were directly contributing to the creation of her art. Let's put Amanda's success in the context of why you as a creator should be on Patreon and the stats that give us critical insight into the site. Toward the end of this chapter, I'll share my biggest takeaway from Amanda's story. Next, let's look at some stats surrounding Patreon and my experience on the platform. Why you should be on Patreon and the stats. In this section of this chapter, we'll explore the reasons for a creator to join Patreon and back them with statistics that underscore its impact. Patreon has positioned itself uniquely as a creator-first platform. Unlike ad-driven models that prioritize clicks and views, Patreon focuses on deepening the relationship between creators and their most loyal fans. Let me say that again. Patreon focuses on deepening the relationship between creators and their most loyal fans. This is not a throwaway line. Throughout this book, you'll need to really commit to building a relationship with people if you want this to work. Like any relationship, that requires time, effort, and consistency. Patreon's intention seems to be that it offers a model that fosters a sustainable and predictable income stream for creators, thus empowering creators with financial independence and the freedom to create without constraints. Here are some stats and facts to consider. Creators' earnings. As of late 2022, Patreon had over 250,000 active creators, with over 3.5 billion sent to creators since its inception, and that's Patreon data. Patreon growth. There's been consistent growth in the number of patrons. Creators often see a direct correlation between the effort they put into engagement and the increase in their patron base. This also requires putting effort into the funnels that get people to look at your Patreon page. We'll cover sales funnels in section 2 of this book. Diverse niches. From writing to podcasts, from music to education, creators across a broad spectrum of disciplines find a home on Patreon, which speaks to its versatility and broad appeal. Patreon has tried to democratize the process of supporting the arts and content creation. It allows anyone to support creators they believe in, starting at just a few dollars per month. This inclusive model means that you don't need to rely on a handful of wealthy patrons. Instead, you can build a diverse community of supporters. In addition, it means that what you post, your members will actually see, unlike social media apps that only show your content to a very small number of people. With a hopefully predictable income, creators have the opportunity to plan long-term projects that might have been too risky without the assurance of Patreon support. The facts that matter for you. While it's inspiring to see top earners bringing in thousands per month, the true power of Patreon is in its capacity to support creators at every level. The median income for Patreon creators varies based on niche and audience size, but many find that even a few $100s a month can make a significant difference in their creative freedom. Beyond the statistics, on a practical level, Patreon simply offers a dedicated space that is easy to use for building a community. The platform facilitates interaction, collaboration, and feedback between creators and patrons, creating an accessible ecosystem where ideas flourish and creativity is nurtured. They make it easy for you to have a place to send your true fans. In my opinion, the case for joining Patreon is clear. Here are a few of my personal reasons. Creative freedom. Free from the pressures of advertisers and algorithms, you can focus on your art. Direct support is another one. Create a direct connection with your audience. Community building. Grow a community that's invested in your success and that wants to engage with you when you drop new products, have new events, and create new content. Flexibility. Offer a range of content across various tiers, providing something for everyone. Overall, Patreon is a great place to dedicate your time and energy if you are a creator, because the journey of growing your page will force you to learn community building, which you will need anyway as a creator. And it's just a bonus that you have the potential to make money. The big takeaway. Based on Amanda's story and a bit of the contextual data points around Patreon, the biggest takeaway is that the platform is there for you, the creator, to engage in a stronger connection with the people who care about your work in the first place. Building on the platform is well worth the time, commitment, and energy because social media platforms do not natively allow you to gather email addresses, show your content to everyone who follows you, or monetize as easily as Patreon allows. The question remains, how do we get those loyal fans to subscribe to yet another offering? That's what we will be talking about in the next chapter. So at the end of this chapter, there are some action items, some activities and worksheets that you can get by scanning the QR code, getting the physical book, or going to my Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard. Chapter 2, the value proposition. What's in it for them? Be honest with the number one reason people join. In the world of Patreon, the truth stands out. People join because they get something out of it. This fundamental understanding is what separates a stagnating page from a flourishing community. It's about value exchange, not just in terms of products or services, but in the psychological satisfaction that patrons receive from their membership. As you'll see in a story I share in a bit, I had this all wrong at the beginning of my Patreon journey. The decision to support a creator on Patreon is driven by a blend of altruism and self interest. Psychological theories, such as the social exchange theory, suggest that relationships are formed and maintained based on the rewards and benefits that individuals expect to receive. In the context of Patreon, while supporters may be motivated by a desire to help a creator they admire, they are also driven by the anticipation of receiving value, whether it's exclusive content, personal interaction, exclusive templates, or the ability to learn from a creator's journey. At the heart of this exchange is the principle of reciprocity. This social norm implies that when people receive a gift or benefit, they will feel compelled to return the favor. You can use this to your benefit as you lead people to your Patreon page. We'll elaborate on this later when we cover the funnels you can use to get people to your page. But the gist of it is that if you give value to someone psychologically, they will want to return the favor. In this case, they can do that by becoming a member. In short, this means providing exclusive content or experiences in exchange for patron support. By doing so, you're not just selling a product or service, you're nurturing a relationship grounded in mutual benefit and appreciation. When I launched my Patreon page, I too fell into the charity site misconception, believing that if people liked my work, they would or should support me financially out of pure goodwill. A handful of members who have been with me since the beginning did just that. They were the exceptions, the rare few who were content with simply supporting me, regardless of consistent rewards or updates. When I recently reached out to these particular members to ask why they supported me years ago, their responses were heartwarming. They were there for the journey, not the perks. However, this group is the minority, and I'd even say for them, they get some intrinsic reward that they cannot articulate. Maybe it's just to say they knew you when, or that they support small businesses. The stark reality became apparent when my growth remained static for 2 years until I shifted my approach. It was only after I began to offer tangible value, coaching calls, editing services, actionable feedback on writing, and more that my Patreon community started to expand. I remember when I first offered a $500 a month tier that would give people a 2 hour monthly call with me, as well as editing of their work. I didn't believe that anyone would ever actually join that tier, but someone did. It had value in it for them. That member stayed on that tier for a full year. That was exhilarating, but it only happened because I started to offer actual value that required time and commitment on my part. Commit to the time and work required to offer value to grow your site. People are in it for themselves. Know that and use that to grow. The vast majority of my patrons, the 99%, joined after I enhanced my page with value driven tiers. This was not a coincidence, but a clear indication that value is the primary driver for membership and retention. It also underscored an important lesson. While altruistic support exists, sustainable growth on Patreon is fueled by consistently providing something of worth. Remember that your Patreon page is not a one-way street where you receive report. It's a give and take proposition. To captivate and retain patrons, you must understand the psychology of reciprocity, acknowledge the human desire for reward, and honestly assess what you're offering in return for their support. As you continue to build your Patreon community, let the principle of value exchange guide your strategy. By doing so, you'll not only attract more patrons, but cultivate a community of engaged supporters who find true satisfaction in the act of patronage because they're getting something meaningful in return. So we're at the end of this chapter. If you want the action items and strategies and templates, you can go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard, or you can scan the QR code and it will take you right there. Once you become a member, you'll get the action items, but the page is also a good example of what we're talking about in this book. So even if you don't become a paid member, you can use my site to see how I have the tiers set up and all of that good stuff. Now, back to the book. Chapter 3, 3 C's of Patreon Success: consistency, communication, and commitment. The last chapter in this section, the why and the how, will cover the art of leading with value by going over 3 principles that you need to keep top of mind as you embark on growing your Patreon. These 3 principles are consistency, communication, and commitment. We'll cover those in turn. Consistency. On social media, virality is often mistaken for victory, but I've come to understand the value of consistency and slow and steady growth. The first of the 3 C's, consistency, underpins the growth of a Patreon community. In 2021, I was advised by my creative coach to start posting on Instagram. I was very uncomfortable with the platform because as a writer, I gravitated toward X, formerly known as Twitter. However, I took on the challenge of elevating my Instagram page because I knew I needed my online presence to match my offline accomplishments. Despite having a TEDx talk under my belt, writing for places like DC and Marvel Comics, and being the first Black woman to win an Eisner Award at San Diego Comic Con, my digital footprint felt incongruous with my real life impact. Instagram became my proving ground. Over 18 months, I embarked on a rigorous posting schedule, posting 3 to 4 times a day for a 30-day stretch. This wasn't just about posting, it was a deliberate practice of crafting better content and understanding the nuanced desires of my audience. The data gathered from consistent posting was crucial to my success on the platform and ultimately to my Patreon growth. It informed me of the content that resonated most, allowing me to define my strategy and grow my following significantly over 2 to 3 years. But the cornerstone of this growth was consistency. It helped me in 3 critical ways. Number one, finding my audience. I was able to attract those who resonated with my message. Number two, building trust. By showing up daily, I established a routine that my audience could rely on. And number three, algorithm training. The consistent activity taught the Instagram algorithm to seek out like minded individuals who would find value in my content. Social media consistency as a funnel to Patreon. Why am I talking about Instagram in a Patreon book? Because Instagram was the first step in my funnel to Patreon. Most people are unfamiliar with Patreon. They require a nudge of trust to move from social scrollers to financial supporters. By being consistent on Instagram, I was able to guide followers to my Patreon page, a seamless transition made possible through the trust I built. Your social media platform may be something else, and that's okay. You can use these tools despite your social media platforms of choice. It is this consistency that allows me to invite people to join my Patreon with credibility. The discipline of daily posts on my chosen platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn, transfers to Patreon. Here lies a crucial truth. The trust you build through consistency is very fragile. One glance at a Patreon page with outdated posts can shatter that trust, turning potential patrons away. Consistency is synonymous with commitment. It's a promise to your audience that you're there for them, come rain or shine. To ask someone to invest in you is first to prove your investment in your own mission. Consistency on social media platforms is your pledge that you're serious about the value you're offering. Adopt this commitment to consistency so when people land on your Patreon page, they do not have to question whether you will or will not show up. Let it be your guiding principle, your pact with your audience, and your assurance to potential patrons that you are as invested in your community as you hope they will be. We'll talk more about funneling people from socials to Patreon later on in this book, but having the proper mindset around consistency is the first step in implementing the strategy. The biggest way to engage in consistency is to communicate with your members. We'll cover the ins and outs of where communication fits in next. Communication. Communication connects us beyond the superficial. Imagine trying to forge a relationship without communication. If you go on a first date with someone and never call them after the date, you cannot advance the relationship. That's called ghosting. You don't get married by going on one date, typically. It's multiple conversations, multiple dates, multiple layers of getting to know the person before they commit to you, and vice versa. It is this ongoing dialogue that deepens connections and nurtures relationships. The same principle applies to Patreon. Your members, your true fans, are there because they've connected with your story, your content, your journey. They've invested not just their time, but their resources into your creative process. Communication on Patreon should be approached with the same intentionality as nurturing a personal relationship in real life. Ghosting your audience by not engaging or failing to follow up is a surefire way to halt the growth of that relationship. Your patrons deserve regular updates, insights into your creative process, and the assurance that their support is not just appreciated, but vital to your work. The people who join your Patreon are your staunchest supporters. They talk about your work and share your content. To maintain and grow this enthusiasm, you must keep the lines of communication open. Commit to engaging with your patrons in an exclusive and meaningful way. Remember, attracting patrons is just the first step. Communication also allows you to retain your members. Keep in mind that just because you get someone to join, it doesn't mean they will stay forever. People flow through life in seasons, and your Patreon community will reflect this. Some may stay for months, others for years. Their tenure in your community might be transient, but while they are with you, make every interaction count. Any break in communication can disrupt their journey with you, leading them to unsubscribe prematurely. Your Patreon shouldn't mirror your social media content, it should expand on it. Patrons join to gain access to something more insights, more depth, more you. When you communicate, do so at a deeper level. Share not only your successes, but also your vulnerabilities, your doubts, and your behind the scenes moments, not just access to drafts and early releases. This level of honesty is hard to find on social media, and it's what can make your Patreon site unique. In addition, communication looks like reflecting on the uncertainty new members might feel. Patreon may be an unfamiliar platform to them, and they've just entrusted you by subscribing and committing to a monthly fee. Your communication can alleviate this uncertainty. The more you interact, the more predictable and comfortable their experience becomes. That is why you need to utilize the welcome notes feature on Patreon. Use the welcome note feature. The welcome note is a feature on Patreon that allows you to message new subscribers immediately. It's automated. This initial communication sets the tone for your relationship with new patrons and puts them at ease. It's an opportunity to thank them, to guide them through your content, and to alleviate any apprehension. For example, my tiers of $7, $12, and $50 have a welcome note. And it is not just a greeting, it's a roadmap. It directs new patrons to valuable resources. And for those in the $50 tier, it provides immediate access to book their first coaching session. This prompt guidance is crucial. It reduces anxiety and confirms to your patrons that they've made the right choice. Imagine someone signing up for $50 a month and they cannot readily find the link to schedule their call with me. They likely feel like they got duped, or they'd have to figure out how to contact me to find what they are looking for. You don't want that. Here's an example of my welcome note for the $50 tier. Welcome to the club. Please look around and check past posts for previous patron benefits. I appreciate the support. If there is a special perk you want, please let me know and I will add it to my suggestion box. For right now, I'll be sending you a signed complimentary book for joining. It usually takes 2 to 3 weeks to sign and ship. Why Wakanda Matters. Also, to jump on the schedule for your first coaching call, use this link. You will use that same link to schedule calls each month going forward. Looking forward to helping you level up. Welcome notes are just the beginning. Maintain an ongoing dialogue with your members. Anticipate the needs of your patrons. Ask them for feedback and always strive to offer them the exclusive experience they signed up for. Good communication is a requirement, and on Patreon, it's also the lifeblood of community retention and satisfaction. Communicate with purpose, with clarity, and with the intent to deepen every patron's connection to you and your creative journey. All of this is great, but none of it will help you if you don't make a commitment. Commitment is what we will focus on next. Commitment. The third C that I view as the anchor of building a thriving Patreon community is commitment. Commitment is a word that I've already used a lot in this book. There is no consistency or communication without commitment. Commitment is what fuels every aspect of your work on Patreon. Commitment is more than a promise. It's an embodiment of your dedication to your craft and your community. It's the inner strength that compels you to show up, create, and connect, even on days when you don't feel like it. For creators, the allure of financial gain is undeniable, but it cannot be the cornerstone of your Patreon. If money is the sole motivator, the path becomes unsustainable. The journey is marred by the absence of passion, and the lack of depth will inevitably be felt by your patrons. Financial aspirations won't give you the fuel of committing to the work required to get your first 100 supporters. My own commitment to Patreon springs from a personal vision and purpose that is meaningful to me. It's a vision that speaks to what I'm striving to accomplish in the world, reaching beyond the tangible and into the realm of family lineage, legacy, and making a positive contribution to the world. To anchor this overall personal vision, I've crafted my own purpose statement, a compass that guides me through the ebbs and flows of creative work. Everyone needs a purpose statement that matters to them, and it is my purpose that fuels my commitment to the process. This purpose statement is my declaration of intent, a reminder of the why behind every post, every update, and every community interaction on Patreon. It's a powerful tool that I turn to when motivation wanes and the commitment wavers. As a creator, your action item at the end of this section is to carve out your purpose statement. I do not believe you can do the work day in and day out without this. Dive deep into the reasons why you've embarked on this path. What drives you? What change you seek to make through your work for yourself, your family, and the world at large? When you find these answers, you'll find the essence of your commitment. Embrace this purpose statement as your mantra. Let it be the beacon that brings you back to center when the chaos of creation feels impossible. It's this commitment that will resonate with your patrons, compelling them to join you not just for content, but for the shared journey toward a common goal. As we close this chapter, remember that commitment is what breathes life into your strategies and tactics. It's what transforms them from mere actions into movements of change and community building. With commitment, you not only reach your first 100 patrons, but also create a space where each member feels a part of something larger than themselves. The purpose statement activity at the end of this section can be found in my Patreon templates if you scan the QR code or go to patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard. There's a whole exercise that will take you through your purpose statement. Section 2, setting up your Patreon. Chapter 4, crafting your identity and tiers. The next 3 chapters will cover setting up your Patreon for success. In this section of the book, we will delve into the foundational elements that will become the cornerstone of your presence on the platform. From the nuances of crafting an engaging profile to the strategic construction of tiers and onto the pivotal steps of creating systems to fulfill promises. This section is designed to build your Patreon with intention and insight. We'll start with some important considerations for your profile setup. The About page. When visitors land on your Patreon, the About page is where they get to know you and understand the value of their support. To make this page stand out, introduce yourself with a personal video detailing who you are and the projects you're passionate about. Follow this with a heartfelt written message, almost like a letter, where you share your goals and how the funds will support your endeavors. This is about connecting with potential patrons on a personal level, showing them the real person they're choosing to support. Make it a blend of your personality, commitment, and vision for the future. This page should not only introduce you and your work, but also encapsulate the essence of your Patreon mission. Here are my suggestions for your video and long-form letter. Number 1, tell your story. Share your journey and the passion behind your work. Be yourself to connect with people like you. Number 2, define your mission. Clearly articulate the purpose of your Patreon. What are you aiming to achieve with the support of your community? Remember, don't expect them to support you just because you exist. Really be honest with them about what you are trying to accomplish in the world. Remember your purpose statement from chapter 3 in this book. Number 3, showcase your work. Include examples of your work that highlight the quality and uniqueness of your content. This will show potential members that you have a history of following through and will have something to show for the financial support you will get from them in the future. Number 4, highlight patron benefits. Explain what value patrons will receive. Make them feel they're becoming part of something special. Do not simply rehash what your tiers say. Make sure you give them more insight into how they will benefit outside of what they can read on the tiers. For example, use this space to tell them about upcoming releases they will have access to, or something exciting that you are releasing on Patreon first or exclusively. Number 5, include testimonials. If you have them, share a few testimonials from your current patrons to build credibility and trust. If you do not have them, Make sure as soon as you get your first few members, you reach out to ask for a testimonial. Social proof is critical. Number 6, call to action. End with a compelling call to action. Encourage readers to join your Patreon community. Your About page on Patreon is your chance to shine and convey your unique story and mission to potential patrons. It's where the essence of your creative journey and the vision for your future projects will be articulated. A compelling video, supported by sincere, descriptive text, personalizes the experience for visitors and invites them into your world. As they read through your About page, let them feel that by supporting you, they're becoming a part of something larger, a community where each contribution is pivotal to the collective success of your creative endeavors. The homepage. The homepage is the most important. This is where people ultimately decide to join or not. That means you have to nail your tier pricing and offerings. I have tested many variations of tier pricing before landing on my current set. I do not believe there is one way to do this. I think setting your tiers depends on who you are as a creator, what you can reasonably offer, and the psychographics of your intended audience. With that said, I will share what is currently working for me and some tier strategies I've tried in the past with some success and some failure. Ultimately, I do think you have to evaluate and reevaluate your tiers every quarter to make sure they are working for you and your goals. Once you find a set of tiers that work for you and your goals, keep them, but never stop reevaluating. Since people seem to like acronyms, I have a method that I believe is a great place to start in terms of thinking about your tiers. In this section, I will share the method first, my current tier strategy, my previous tier strategy, and my overall takeaway on the topic of setting your tiers. One more thing. Do not forget that if you are following my advice, you've already made a list of competitors in the action item section of chapter 1, and this is a great time to see how they have tier pricing set up and engage in some future competitive research on this topic. Again, if you're listening to this book, that exercise is over on my Patreon page, or it is in the physical copy of the book, which you can get on Amazon or over on my Patreon shop. For a strategic approach to setting up enticing Patreon tiers, consider the acronym VALUE, VALUE. V, validate. Research your audience to understand their interests and how much they would be willing to pay. Look at similar creators in your niche and see what they offer and at what price points. Send a survey to your followers asking what they value most as Patreon perks. If you have a few existing members on your Patreon, ask them what you need to offer in order to get them to bump up to a higher tier. A, assemble. Create tiers with clear incremental benefits that build upon each tier, offering greater access and exclusivity. Start with a base tier offering basic perks like early access to content or a digital copy of a piece of your art. Then add tiers with exclusive content, merchandise, or personalized feedback for creative work. L, leverage. Use your skills and unique offerings to provide value that can't be found elsewhere. If you're an artist, offer limited canvas prints mailed to your paid members. For writers, offer to ship a book to each new member. U, understand. Ensure each tier's pricing reflects the perceived value and the actual cost of delivering the benefits. If your lowest tier is $5, try to ensure the perks cost less than that to fulfill. As tiers increase in price, add perks that offer more of your time or personal interaction, like one-on-one calls. Make sure you can articulate why someone would choose the $10 tier over the $7 tier. We'll talk more about this shortly. E, engage. Offer interactive or community building perks that encourage ongoing engagement and support. Include a tier that offers a monthly group webinar or an interactive community challenge, encouraging patrons to stay active and connected. Including ways to engage is something members are looking for. Think about what this might look like for your community. Is it a private Discord channel, invite-only live or virtual events? In setting prices, start with a low entry tier that's a no-brainer for your fans. Then scale up, ensuring each higher tier offers substantial additional value. The difference from one level to the next should be clear. The audience shouldn't have to guess as to why they choose one tier over the other. For member on Patreon, members can easily bump up and down the tiers. This is important because even if you get someone to join as a free member, that gives you the opportunity to show them what they are missing out on by not getting a paid membership. Always align what you offer with what you can sustainably deliver. For example, do not offer individual coaching on a tier to an unlimited number of people if you know you can't handle a large number of coaching calls each month. Patreon has a feature where you can set a limit to how many people can join on a particular tier. This is good for two reasons. It creates a sense of urgency so people feel like there is space running out if they don't join. But it also allows you to handle the number of members in each tier depending on what you are promising them. What my tiers are, the sweet spot for me right now. In this section, I'll go over what my current tiers are, why I made these choices, and why I believe they are working. First, the following are my current tiers, as well as a note on how I think about these tiers in terms of benefits to my members. Please note that I enabled the free membership as well, so I have members in my community who do not pay. I highly recommend, if it is not required by Patreon, that you enable the free option. We'll talk more about why this is important later on in the book. Love tier, $3 a month, limit availability. All of my tiers have limited availability. I view this tier as a no-risk way for someone who is on the fence to join my community without feeling like they are giving too much financially. My goal is to give enough value at this tier where people will want to bump up in the future. That means you should frequently be showing people in this tier what they can gain by bumping up. Gain the trust of the members in this tier, and they will have no problem bumping up in a few weeks or months when you have something really enticing to offer. It's important you have content for the more costly tiers that clearly show people in the lower tiers what they are missing, while giving the higher tiers a lot of added value. Always have an over-deliver attitude no matter the tier. Here's what the members in this tier get with my current setup. Exclusive access to templates and downloads. So, for example, if you were to join this tier on my Patreon, you'd get the worksheets and activities that I'm talking about in this book. Member-only posts, including detailed creative videos, random free goodies, which includes courses, event access, and interactive opportunities, insight into my creative process through drafts and works in progress, a monthly newsletter curating resources, funds, and grants for creatives, and quarterly live sessions. MeWe tier, which is $7 a month, and it has limited availability. I highly recommend capping the number of people that can join each tier as it creates a sense of urgency. At this tier and the previous tier, there is no real reason for me to cap it aside from the fact that I want to entice people to join. If someone is on the fence about joining this tier, it may push them over the edge if they see there are only 2 spots left. I do not allow this tier to actually sell out. When I see that it is reaching its cap, I am diligent about increasing the cap. However, as you'll see for my $50 a month tier, the cap is important and is there for a reason. Here's what the members in this tier get with my current setup. An autographed copy of Why Wakanda Matters for joining. A monthly newsletter curating resources, funds, and grants for creatives. Exclusive video uploads packed with growth-inspiring content. 1 free autographed or digital project annually. Quarterly live sessions. VIP patron tier, $12 a month, limited availability. For this tier, notice that the big incentive is the same as the previous tier, a free copy of my book, Why Wakanda Matters. However, I am able to make a clear distinction on what this tier offers that the previous tier doesn't, and that's merchandise. Currently, my custom apparel is only available for purchase on Shopify or as a perk in my Patreon. So you can only get the merchandise you see me wearing in my own videos in 2 places. This is important. Early in my Patreon days, I had tiers that were close in terms of pricing, but there was no clear reason why someone would choose the $7 over the $12 tier. However, when you can make a clear distinction, then the increased price is clear and unquestionable. As you see below, this tier enjoys merchandise mailed to them every 3 months. Patreon mails the merchandise on my behalf. I don't have to do any fulfillment. I highly recommend you take advantage of this feature. Yes, Patreon does take an additional cut, and yes, you do pay for it out of your monthly Patreon income, but it is worth it. For me, I was willing to lose money on my Patreon community for over a year in order to build a strong community because I knew the long-term result would be worth it. The breakdown of the value of this tier, the VIP tier, is all benefits from previous tier, exclusive member-only merchandise every 3 months, copies of upcoming physical and ebook releases, including exclusive titles. All in patron tier, $50 a month. This tier is usually always sold out. For me, that is okay because in this tier, I offer one-on-one coaching and I do not want to coach more than 8 to 10 people a month. I wouldn't be able to keep up with the coaching schedule if this tier was not capped. This works in my favor as it allows me to have a wait list of people eager to join as soon as a spot opens up. It may also result in people joining a cheaper tier while they wait, as being a member will give them first access to bump up to the coaching tier later on. Again, this creates urgency and is great to keep your membership and potential members activated and ready to bump up tiers. Patreon allows members to bump up and down the tiers at will. So this current tier structure allows me the ability to use that to entice members at each level to bump up or at least to see what they are missing or gaining depending on which tier they are in. The all-in patron tier includes all benefits from previous tiers plus monthly 60-minute one-on-one coaching and strategy sessions with me. Here's my thinking around this tier structure. One, it is a result of 3 years of testing different options. I have found this one to be the most effective. In the next section, I will talk about the tier structure that I had right before this one. But I've had multiple tier structures before finding one that works. I am reiterating that so that you remember that you might not nail the tiers on the very first time. But if you focus on the value added to each tier and make a clear distinction between the tiers in terms of what members are getting, you'll find success. I think this current combination works because it starts with a foundational tier at an accessible price point. The first level is for those just dipping their toes into my creative world, offering them first access to my work and the opportunity to receive unexpected bonuses. My aim here is to provide so much value that members naturally feel inclined to move to higher tiers. In addition, since I post regularly, people can see that I am active and giving value even at this tier consistently. I use the autographed Why Wakanda Matters book as a lead magnet to get people to see that they will get something physical in the mail at this tier. The next tier distinguishes itself with exclusive merchandise and deeper content. Think life lessons and advanced previews of my work. The tangible difference in what members receive at this stage is crystal clear. Lastly, the most premium tier is intentionally limited to maintain its exclusivity and my capacity to deliver personalized one-on-one coaching. It's almost always at capacity, creating a waitlist that adds to its allure, encouraging members from other tiers to consider stepping up for this personalized experience when it is available. In essence, each level is carefully calibrated not just to deliver value, but also to give a taste of what lies ahead, encouraging members to evaluate their support as they seek deeper engagement with my work. At this point, one of the questions you may have is the workload in mailing books. Yes, I have to print labels and mail books, but it's worth it. It took me about a year, but I have a system to get the books delivered monthly to my new members. We'll talk about systems to deliver on the promises in chapter 6. Also, this is an expense that you incur. But again, mailing books is worth it to really entice people to join at my 2 middle tiers. As an author, I also get to deliver my book all around the world, which is why I write, to reach as many people as possible with my work. Before wrapping up this section, I do want to cover some possible pros and cons of my current tier combination so that you can decide if this is something you want to try. My tier strategy on Patreon is tailored to maximize engagement and value at every level. Here are the pros and cons of my approach. Pros: graduated value. Each tier builds on the last, offering escalating rewards that entice members to upgrade. Exclusivity, limited availability in tiers creates a sense of urgency and desirability. Accessibility, the entry level tier allows for low risk engagement, perfect for newcomers. Personal connection, premium tiers offer one on one interactions, deepening member relationships. Cons, complexity. More tiers can mean more complexity in managing and delivering on promises, especially if you will include mailed physical products. Potential overcommitment. Personalized interactions require significant time investment, and if you do not deliver, you will break the trust of your members. Sustainability. Continually providing escalating value can be challenging over time. Ultimately, the success of this tiered strategy hinges on balancing the delivery of value with sustainable commitment. Make sure what you commit to is something that is sustainable for you to deliver. What my previous tiers were, pros and cons. Right before the tiers outlined in the previous section, I had a tier that was $500, and this tier gave members 2-hour feedback calls each month as well as book editing. The tiers were $7, $12, $50, and $500. Please remember that my tiers have changed more times than I can remember, and I am simply sharing my most recent tiers as they are the most recent changes I've made. The pros and cons of this tier combination are similar to the previous section, but frankly, I did not like the 2-hour feedback call. Even if it was high ticket and brought in good money, the call was too long. The editing of books each month will be daunting with multiple members on that tier, and it didn't feel sustainable for me. It might be sustainable for you, and if you can swing it, it's not a bad idea. As soon as my last member left that tier, I got rid of it. I shared this though because it's a great example of something you can offer that is pretty expensive but can bring significant income to your bank account. So that's the end of chapter 4, and I have an action item for you. You can read the action item if you get the physical book over on Amazon or over on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard. You can also scan the QR code if you are watching this on one of your devices. Chapter 5, getting to your next 10. Now that you have your tier set up, let's get your next 10, maybe even 20 members. If you already have a few members, you should still do the work in this chapter to get your next 10 or 20 members. If you go hard using this strategy, you'll likely get even more. When I began my Patreon, I initially hesitated to share it widely, holding back from even my closest friends and family members. But as I enriched my tiers with value, my confidence grew. This chapter will unveil the method I used and still use to attract your next 10 and possibly 20 members right away. It's a straightforward concept. The more people are aware of your Patreon, the more potential members you have. I reached out to my warm audience, those already familiar with me through various interactions. These people may not need what I am offering, but they do have a connection point with me. I sent personalized messages to my contacts across all platforms, inviting them to join my free tier and share my page. This approach wasn't about direct sales. It was about extending an invitation to connect on Patreon, which could lead to them choosing a paid tier. Here's a glimpse into the type of message I'd send. Hey there, I've launched a Patreon community. I'd be thrilled if you joined the free tier and shared it with anyone who'd appreciate my work. Here's the link. By crafting messages that were genuine and not pushy, I opened the door for my network to become part of my Patreon family, either as free or paid members. It's all about making that connection, offering value, and gently inviting them to be a part of your creative journey or share it with someone else that might find value. Here's an example of an extended email I sent to my network using this method. Hey there, whoever it is you're emailing. I am dropping a new book to celebrate the first 100 milestone. Wondering if you can join here for free. Click the Join for Free button and share the link with a friend you think might find value in one of the paid tiers. Each member of the $7 and up tier gets an autographed copy of Why Wakanda Matters mailed to them. Also, if you're wondering what the book drop will be, it'll be a book on how to get your first 100 patrons on Patreon. Every paid member will get a free physical copy. Think you can join for free? That's it. I recommend taking 30 days and sending 5 emails and 5 social media messages like this every day for 30 days. You will get members if you followed all of the steps we've talked about in this book so far. Also, once you get your first group of members, don't stop sending these types of messages. I still do a 30-day spurt of sending these types of messages. The methods don't change just because I reached over 100 members. I'll use the same method to get to 500 members. And there's an action item at the end of this chapter. You can get access to that action item by getting the book on my Patreon page or Amazon, or accessing the templates and resources at patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard. Chapter 6, building your systems and keeping your promises. Once I recognized that offering my book as an incentive was attracting new members to my paid tiers, I encountered a new challenge: the logistics of fulfilling those orders. For a while, this lack of a system restrained me from promoting my Patreon more aggressively. I didn't want to promise more than I could deliver, especially if membership numbers surged. Over time, I devised a system to manage the fulfillment process, which significantly streamlined my operations. Each month, about 10 new members qualify for a signed copy of my book, Why Wakanda Matters. My assistant compiles all the shipping labels for these members and uploads them to a Google Drive folder. Once notified, I print these labels and sign all of the books. They aren't personalized, just autographed. After signing, I leave the packaging and posting to my mom, who also works for my business. My mom drops them off at FedEx. This all happens once a month. This system not only ensures that orders go out timely, but also provides additional content opportunities, posting updates about signing new books or the next trip my mom will be taking to FedEx. The process becomes part of my engagement with my patrons. I've also leveraged Patreon's merchandise feature for my $12 tier, where Patreon handles the shipping. This removes the burden of fulfillment from my shoulders and allows me to focus on creating content and engaging with my community. The lesson here is to build a balance between what you can offer and what you can realistically fulfill. Sometimes investing in a system that may initially cost you can build a strong foundation for a flourishing community. Always aim to deliver on your promises. This is how you maintain trust and grow your Patreon family. Overall, when offering physical products on Patreon, it's crucial to handle fulfillment efficiently. Here are the top 5 things to consider. Inventory management. Keep a precise count of your inventory to avoid overpromising. Shipping logistics. Choose a reliable shipping service and consider cost and tracking options. Time management. Schedule regular times for signing, packing, and shipping to keep your process consistent. System automation. Use tools to automate parts of the process, like label printing or customer notifications. I have my assistant add my email address onto the labels so that I can be notified. So when she creates the labels and when I ship and when they get delivered, I get an email each time. Customer communication. Keep patrons informed about when they can expect their items to maintain transparency and trust. And so there's an action item here at the end of this chapter. You can grab a physical copy of the Patreon book or go over to my Patreon page to get that. You can do that by scanning the QR code or going to patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard. That's DrSheena Howard. Section 3, building a funnel and getting to 100. Chapter 7, the lead magnet. You've heard me mention the lead magnet in this book and how I use Why Wakanda Matters as a lead magnet to get members. This is by far my most successful strategy in getting new members. Some people only stay until they get the book, and others stay way beyond that. In this chapter, I will spend time on what a lead magnet is, why it's so important, and give additional ideas on how you can use one to get new members. A lead magnet is a strategic tool used to attract potential patrons to your Patreon page. It's essentially an irresistible offer, a valuable piece of content or product given in exchange for contact information or a subscription. As a creator, your lead magnet should be something unique to your craft and appealing enough to entice your audience. For instance, if you're a musician, your lead magnet could be a free exclusive track or a behind-the-scenes video of your recording process. A painter might offer a limited edition painting and mail it to new patrons when they join. Think creatively here and try to nail down on something only you can offer. That is, a thing that people can only get from you. For example, you can only get an autographed copy of Why Wakanda Matters from me. Amazon can't give you that. A lead magnet can manifest in myriad forms, contingent on the essence of your craft. Visual artists might offer a downloadable print or an interactive piece of art not yet available to the public. In addition, a lead magnet is a targeted giveaway, something that your audience finds so valuable that they're willing to exchange their contact information or follow a call to action to receive it. Here are some more lead magnet examples for creators. Writers might offer an exclusive short story or a chapter preview of their latest work. Musicians could provide an unreleased track, exclusive merchandise, or a membership card to access all live shows for free. Visual artists might give away a digital wallpaper, Canva templates, or a tutorial on their art technique. Educators could share a free webinar or an educational PDF guide. Now that you have some examples of lead magnets you can offer, let's talk about implementing the lead magnet and figuring out the best lead magnet for you to offer your audience. Implementing lead magnets. To effectively implement a lead magnet that resonates with your audience and genuinely incentivizes membership, follow this structured approach. Number one, identify your audience's needs. Dive deep into the interests and challenges of your audience, that is the psychographics. What unique content, experiences, or solutions can you offer that they would find irresistible? You can do this by asking your current followers what they are struggling with, what they need, what they are currently working on, and why they need help and why they need help. Number two, create valuable content. Your lead magnet should be a testament to the quality and value of your full Patreon offering. Design it to not just satisfy an immediate need, but to also showcase the depth and breadth of what you create. This is a reflection of you, not just some free giveaway that you threw together quickly. Number three, deliver excellence. Ensure that your lead magnet is delivered smoothly. This could mean automated emails, welcome notes as already discussed, upon sign up, or a dedicated download page that's easily accessible. Number four, follow up. After they receive the lead magnet, engage with your new members. Ask for feedback and provide additional value to nurture the relationship. Make sure they receive their item by communicating on Patreon through either a post or a personal message. Number five, assess and adapt. Monitor how your lead magnet performs. Are people signing up? Are they engaging with the content? Use this data to refine your approach or try different lead magnets to see what works best. Once you find something that works, it isn't the time to be creative, it's a time to be consistent. By integrating a lead magnet that truly speaks to your audience's desires and delivering on your promises, you lay the groundwork for a thriving Patreon community. So there's a action item here. If you want the action item with the templates and resources, go over to my Patreon page at patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard. Or if you're watching this, scan the QR code. You can also get the physical book on Amazon or over on my Patreon shop. Chapter 8, Social Media Strategy, a Funnel. In this chapter, we're going to navigate the realms of a social media sales funnel, specifically focusing on Instagram to shepherd people into your Patreon community. While the method I teach here focuses on Instagram, you can use these techniques on any platform. But understand that whatever platform you choose, you have to take the time to learn that platform. The main point here is that social media is the best place today to funnel people to your Patreon community. The process is simple. Excellent content leading people to join your community. Let's break it down, starting with the essentials. The 3 B's of a sales funnel: brand awareness, brand trust, and brand customer. These are the milestones on the path to conversion. I call them the 3 B's because it's an easy way for me to remember the 3 essential phases of a sales funnel. Getting people into your community is the same process as selling anything. That is, you have to make your thing known, you have to gain trust, and you have to have a way for people to pay you. Let's go into these 3 phases a bit more and discuss how they are applied to each stage of the funnel that leads to building a community. Using social media as a starting point to connect with potential community members. Brand awareness, phase 1, is all about your content. It's your first impression. It's there to spread the word far and wide to make your brand known. You can achieve this through organic content, which doesn't cost you anything or cost very little, or paid content, social media ads. But content isn't just about promotion. It's about revealing the story behind the creator, your story. Rather than just pushing out links to your work or Patreon page, the content needs to be about incorporating narratives that show the person behind the brand. It's about creating content that allows your tribe to find you in the first place. You accomplish that by being genuinely you. And it's not about being authentic. It's about setting aside your ego, honing in on the message you want to impart, and sharing your journey, the triumphs and struggles that make you relatable. To do that, you need to better understand your audience. Understanding your audience is key. Dive into the psychographics, the mindset and values of the people you want to connect with. My audience, they're ambitious. They value hard work. They're creators looking for collaboration and community. And I know this because I've asked them. I've messaged them directly. What are you working on? I've kept track of these conversations, noting them down meticulously in Excel spreadsheets, which I share in my Patreon membership site at patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard. I send audio messages daily to the people that engage with me on Instagram. It takes work, but this is what you need to do to build trust and act on that awareness that you are seeking. Facebook analytics are a great place to get the demographics of your audience. And furthermore, Facebook analytics can offer a treasure trove of other data. Though remember, it's not about demographics as much as it's about psychographics, about connecting on a level beyond mere statistics. Look at social media as you would any real life relationship you have with another human being. Because after all, those are human beings on the other side of those likes and comments. It's a two-way street. A like is not just a number, it's a person showing interest. A comment is a potential conversation that can lead to a conversion. These are real people engaging with your content, and each interaction is precious. Precious. Each interaction matters. This leads to brand trust, phase 2. You build trust by being where you said you'd be, by being consistent, by being present. When I go live and share my morning routine, it's not just about eating oatmeal, it's about letting people into my world. It's humanizing myself, the brand. And after you've laid the groundwork of awareness and trust, converting people, phase 3, to customers becomes an easier task. You've been there day in and day out. And now here's the Patreon link. Jump in for free, you say, and share it with someone who might enjoy the paid version. If you've done the legwork, if you built the rapport, they'll see the value in your Patreon offerings. It's about making your offer irresistible, but also being real to the people you seek to connect with. It's about reaching a point where saying no feels like they're missing out on a deeper connection with you and something that will help them. That's the power of a well-crafted Instagram sales funnel. Now, once you've mastered these steps, you can start to automate to funnel people through the process without having to do so much of the work manually. But to reach those first crucial supporters, it's about these fundamental steps and genuinely getting to know the people who will form the cornerstone of your community. Because ultimately, they're not just followers. They're your future patrons, your supporters, the lifeblood of your creative endeavors. This is the essence of the Instagram sales funnel. For me, I spent a few years getting to know the people that followed me. I manually send all of my new followers a free copy of my fiction book, Nina's Whisper. In order to get the free book, they need to join my mailing list. Once they join my mailing list, they'll get the book, but they will also receive additional automated emails prompting them to leave a review for the book on Amazon. This is a great example of a sales funnel because the last message in the email automation asks them to buy a physical copy of the book for themselves or a friend. This is the same strategy you can use for a sales funnel on Instagram that leads people to your Patreon site. The examples and options are really endless. Here are some tools I currently use to automate my various sales funnels. MailChimp. You can use this email management system to get people to opt into your mailing list. Then include an automated email sequence that invites people to join your Patreon. ManyChat. This site allows you to automate responses to your content on Instagram. You can use this to create engagement and use a trigger word such as message me the word book to get a free copy. When a user messages you the word book, ManyChat will send them a link to your Patreon where they can sign up to get the book. Saved replies on Instagram. This is a feature in Instagram where you can save messages and type in the first word of that message, and Instagram will complete the message for you. For example, I used to send everyone a free copy of my book when they followed me. To deliver the free book, I messaged a new follower a canned saved reply that says, as a thank you for following me, I am shooting you a free copy of my most popular fiction book. However, with the saved reply, I wouldn't have to type out the entire message each time. From there, I could get people to give me their email addresses in exchange for the free book and send them through an email automation. To wrap up, we've walked through the creation of an Instagram sales funnel example, a pathway to convert people to patrons. The 3 B's, brand awareness, brand trust, and brand customer, are the phases of this transition. By sharing your true self and story, you've invited your audience to connect on a personal level, building trust through consistency and genuine interaction. Remember, it's about quality connections, not just numbers. As you move forward, these connections can become the bedrock of your Patreon, transforming followers into patrons and forming a community that not only supports but also enjoys the membership experience. Implement the steps, embrace automation, and always keep the human touch at the heart of your interactions. So the action item here at the end of the book can be found in the physical copy of the book if you go to Amazon or if you go to my Patreon shop at patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard. You can also scan the QR code if you are watching this. Chapter 9, document true fans and ask them to join. This last but crucial chapter explores the powerful concept of 1,000 true fans. My creative coach introduced me to this idea, and it reshaped my approach to achieving my first six figures in income as a creative entrepreneur. It made making my first six figures as an entrepreneur achievable. Although making six figures as a creative is not the focus of this book, the concept is pivotal in helping you understand the types of people likely to join your Patreon, true fans. If you can identify those people, you will have success in enrolling people into your membership site. That's what we talk about in this section, how to identify your true fans. First, I'll cover what the 1,000 True Fans concept is and who coined it. Then we'll finish this chapter by discussing how you can follow my method of identifying and documenting your true fans. 1,000 True Fans concept. In the world of creative entrepreneurship, there's a notion that success is synonymous with a big following or a huge platform. The image of millions of fans often overshadows the reality is that such a reach is not only daunting, but also unnecessary for substantial financial success. Enter the 1,000 True Fans concept, an approach that demystifies the journey to a six figure income by focusing on quality, not quantity. Originally coined by Kevin Kelly, the 1,000 True Fans concept has become a beacon of light for creatives worldwide. The promise is simple. Rather than striving for widespread fame, a creator can earn a comfortable living by cultivating a smaller base of dedicated fans. These fans are so passionate about the creator's work that they're willing to spend $100 each year on products or content. When you multiply this by 1,000, a six figure income becomes a tangible target. Kevin Kelly says on his blog, to be a successful creator, you don't need millions. You don't need millions of dollars or millions of customers, millions of clients, or millions of fans. To make a living as a craft person, photographer, musician, designer, author, animator, app maker, entrepreneur, or inventor, you need only thousands of true fans. Excuse me, lost my place. We're almost done, guys and girls. A true fan is more than a casual liker or a passive subscriber. These are individuals deeply invested in your creative journey. They are the first to buy a new release, whether it's a novel, an album, an original artwork. Their support transcends the transactional. They become advocates for your brand, often influencing others to become true fans as well. To use the power of this concept, start by identifying who your true fans are. Engage with your audience and understand what drives them. What do they love about your work? How does it resonate with them? True fans often emerge from this interactive process as they feel a personal connection to the creator. Here are some strategies to cultivate true fans. Later, we will talk about how to track your true fans. Number one, personal engagement. Interact with your audience through social media, email newsletters, and other platforms. Personal stories, behind the scene glimpses, and direct responses to comments can foster a sense of community. Number two, exclusive content. Offer content that it is exclusive to your true fans. If you see someone on your socials who is highly engaged and has purchased something from you, like a course, send them something of value with no expectation of anything in return. Often, this leads to true fans looking for other ways to support you. This could lead to a new member. Number three, quality over quantity. Focus on the value of what you offer. A well crafted piece of content can have more impact than frequent, less meaningful posts. Number four, listening and adapting. Pay attention and be open to feedback. True fans will often provide insights that can help refine your offerings and align them more closely with their interests. Number five, saying thank you. Show appreciation for your fans. Thank you notes, shout outs, and acknowledgments can go a long way in strengthening loyalty. True fans are instrumental in organic marketing. They are likely to share their enthusiasm for your work with friends and family, effectively amplifying your reach without any additional marketing spend. Once you have a base of true fans, you can plan your creative and business endeavors around this supportive community. Knowing that you have a dedicated audience willing to spend a certain amount each year allows for more accurate financial forecasting and sustainable growth. The beauty of the 1,000 True Fans concept is its versatility. If you can't envision reaching 1,000 fans, consider aiming for 100 fans who might spend 200 annually. That's a great start. The key is the level of engagement and commitment from each fan. The 1,000 True Fans concept is a powerful reminder that in the age of digital creation, financial success doesn't require universal acclaim. It pivots on the strength of the connection between a creator and their audience. For creatives, this approach can lead to a more manageable, enjoyable, and ultimately successful career path. By focusing on nurturing true fans, creatives can build a foundation that supports not only their current projects, but also their future endeavors, making the creative journey sustainable and rewarding. Your true fans will ultimately become your Patreon members. Documenting your fans. This 1000 True Fans concept says that attaining significant earnings is possible through a dedicated base. I believe you can even make this more doable by lowering the number to 50, 100, or even 500 true fans to start. I started with a smaller number to focus on when I first learned this concept because even 1000 seemed daunting back then. A true fan is someone who not only purchases from you but also talks about you. For me, identifying these fans began on platforms like Udemy, an online course site, as well as Instagram. Having an Instagram account of just over 1,000 followers back in 2020, 2021, I engaged deeply with those who interacted with my content. I started to track those who were already buying my courses on Udemy and publicly saying positive things about me and my work on apps like Twitter and Facebook. Once I started to identify these people, I'd engage with them through conversation to learn more about them and their needs. To keep track of these interactions, I maintained an Excel spreadsheet documenting not just purchases and public praises, but personal insights into each fan's creative endeavors. I make notes on what they were working on, where they were stuck, and the questions they were asking me. This tedious but rewarding process not only built a database of true fans, but also indicated that these same people might be potential Patreon members. Even if those people didn't join my membership site, I had a deepened understanding of my audience's needs and desires. The practice of doing this for years before I had 80,000 plus followers on Instagram has allowed me to maintain the system still today. I am trained to send audio messages, respond to each DM, follow up with people, ask people what they are working on, because I had been doing it for years before my account blew up. Therefore, I highly encourage you to pinpoint your true fans in this same way. Document, engage, and get to know them. Then, when the relationship is established, introduce them to your Patreon, offering them a place in both free and paid tiers. When you have shown someone that you are interested in who they are and what they do, it's not a surprise to them that you'd invite them to your Patreon community. You've already established a relationship. Once you have a good grasp of who your true fans are, you can invite them to join your membership site. So that is the end of First 100, your Patreon strategy guide. If you would like the physical copy of the book so that you can get the worksheets and templates, join my Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Sheena Howard, or you can get the physical copy on Amazon or on my Patreon site at the same web address. If you're watching this, you can also scan the QR code. Hope you enjoyed the book, and I hope you have an amazing